One of the greatest compliments I got was from Eddie Murphy, man. I was doing one of my classic little small part in a film, and it was about the drug scene in high school. And I'm walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, and they're shooting something at the Formosa Cafe, which is a very famous bar. And out comes Eddie. He was shooting Beverly Hills Cop 2. And he goes to his bodyguard over by the camera, and he looks up at me. And then he looks down, he looks up at me again. He said, "Oh man, you were in the movie, man. I just saw the other day, you're in it. Tell me, what is the deal?" And repeated one of my life, "No, no, 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 let's talk about it. Write to me." And I said, "Eddie, what you doing copying me?"
Welcome to the Freecast.
All right, this one is for all the horror fans, the George Romero fans, and specifically Day of the Dead fans. This is our interview with the awesome actor Terry Alexander on V3Cast, episode 41. We would like to introduce to everybody actor extraordinaire Terry Alexander.
Hey, hey.
Thank you very much for coming on V3Cast. Huge fans of your work, namely, of course, Day of the Dead. It's our pleasure to have you on, for sure.
Well, it's good to be here. I'm glad Detroit, you in Detroit and me in Detroit, which is all good, man.
Yeah. See, I wore this hat for you.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
I did my research. Plus, the first question I wanted to ask you right out the gate, I know you're rooting for the Lions, right?
Absolutely.
Let's just get that out of the way.
Thank you, brother.
Very nice. For the first question, we're going to dig way back.
Okay.
And wanted to know, tell us a little bit about your early days and breaking into acting.
Well, I kind of fell in love with the play back in the day, and it was called Cyrano de Bergerac. It's a French play. And the lead guy has a very large nose. And the society doesn't accept him because he has a big proboscis. So he's a very bright man. He's a poet, philosopher, musician, but they just don't accept him. So I kind of related to that character back in the day, in the early 60s, and I fell in love with it. So then, people say, "Oh, you speak the words very nicely. You should study," because I memorized all the great poems he said, and then would spout them off to people. And so that's how I got started in loving theater, and then I took it from there.
So when did that start? Was that like junior high, would you say? High school? Or
Junior high, man. Junior high.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely then. And then I joined the drama club in high school. And then I didn't know that you could study acting in college. I didn't know. So they told me I could. And I said, "Okay, get all A's and B's and you give me some money and I'll go to Wayne State University." And that's what happened. Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Aaron and I both went there.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
We
Yeah.
were the Tartar. Were you a Tartar?
Yeah.
Because we're old school. We were Tartars. Now they're the Warriors.
Oh, I was a Tartar. Yeah, Warriors. Is
okay, all right.
I have to say I love the Warriors name better, but we were Tartars. What can you do?
Definitely, they were strong-willed people, and they made a lot of victories out there. The Tartars, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. So you mentioned that you were able to study acting at Wayne State, so I'm sure that helped propel you even more. Did you leave Detroit right after graduating Wayne State, or did you kind of float around, or what was kind of your path at that point?
Well, I heard New York was the mecca of theater, so I wanted to hop, skip, and jump there, and that's exactly what I did. But New York was a strange and busy place, and it scared me, man. It scared the hell out of me. So, and I didn't save enough money to get there in the first place, so I went back to Detroit and started substitute teaching and saved some more money, and then I jumped back into New York City, but I went back to Detroit for a while.
So were you better prepared when you went back to New York? You have a
Yes.
better handle? Yeah.
Yes, I had a better handle, and I discovered some place to study there, and met some people, and they turned me on to auditioning for a few things here and there. So that's how I got started going back. But I just felt more comfortable, with a few ducats in my pocket,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's excellent. And
So what was the first thing you sort of got in New York that got you sort of your foot in the door? Was there a pivotal
Yeah,
moment like that?
yeah. They were doing. I got off in children's theater, and they were doing a play called The Ice Wolf, and it happened in Rochester, New York. And then when you travel around the schools and you do children's plays, and The Ice Wolf was about an Alaskan village. And all of a sudden, there was an albino child born in an Alaskan village, and they were, doing bad numbers to this albino child because they're all brown. So it had a reverse kind of prejudice thing, and it was good to work in that and let the kids know that you can't jump on people all the time. That was the first thing I did, and from there I went back to New York and got involved in a play called No Place to Be Somebody. And that was the first African American play to win a Pulitzer back in 1970. And I went all over the country with that off Broadway, around the national tour. I came back to New York. We did it on Broadway with Philip Michael Thomas, who was in Miami Vice.
Yeah.
We did the leads together, and that's how I got going, with soap operas and TV and the rest of it.
That's great. That's a great spot to get in with an a Pulitzer-winning play, and there's touring and everything. How long did you get to do that? Like, was it years?
Yeah, it was years. I was in and out of that company for years because it was a great role, it was a lead role, and I got good experience, and I had a great director and coach and mentor. So I stayed around the company for a couple of years, man, until I got something else. But it was a great learning experience for me to get in that kind of material, which is, beautiful.
That's great.
That's
really awesome.
Well, talk about hitting it great. Like, when you returned and you're like, man, I hope I can get some traction and get something. And then boom, that's
that's the right word. Boom.
Great.
Well, it was the 60s, late 60s and 70s, and America was really quite open and beautiful at that time, man. It was a magic in the air in the late 60s and the Cultural Revolution, man. And I caught on to that, and people were into it at the time. They were into being open and sweethearts in the 60s, 70s, and the Beatles and all that other stuff was happening to the consciousness. So it was a cool time, man. I try and tell people that it was a sweet time in the evolution of America because everybody was trying to come together, as the name of a song, I think, Come Together.
That's right.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Tell us how that reporter role, that very small role in Death Wish, came to be.
Oh, that was just auditioning, man. They were looking for somebody to do a newspaper guy, and I said, let me throw this in the ring, and they chose me. That's a lot of the stuff I got was purely auditions, and sometimes it's not like that. You got to know the producer, you might know the director, and, stuff like that. But a lot of it was auditions, so that's how that came to be.
Yeah.
I think Michael Winters directed that, I think his name was, and he directed me, and that was it. Audition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by this point, do you have an agent? Are you just cold calling, cold auditioning? Like we don't know how that world works at all. So I've always been interested, like what you do to get auditions. Like how do you just show up? Like I don't know.
Yeah, there was literature back then. It was a backstage. It was called Backstage, and they list jobs that were available. And that's the first thing you do. Now, if you get a play or you get something, then you get an agent, and your agent submits you for different projects. And that's how that happens. There were some designation called a casting director that came on later. The agent used to have all the power. And then casting directors came into being, and agents had to talk to casting directors, and the casting director would cast stuff for bring actors to the director or producer, whoever was in control.
It's funny that you mention about all this theater, because when I was preparing for this interview and getting these questions together, I did realize that it seemed like you had done quite a bit of theater. What do you enjoy about theater in particular that might not translate to motion picture? And they're different animals, obviously, but just want
definitely different animals. Well, theater is about ritual. In ritual, there's power. And you start at the beginning of the play and you work it all the way through in a ritualistic fashion. In film, there is not that. There's no ritual. They film by location. So that you might shoot the end of the movie before you shoot the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's a different head for yourself, for your character. So you have to know what you're doing all the time. You have to be a good technician to do a movie. And in the play, you just come to the theater, you know your character, and you, from one end to the other, you make it magic. And you have to listen to your audience. You become concentration. You have to use multi-concentration to be on stage. Mm-hmm. And in film, you get your take when it comes to your take, and the camera is on you, and the other actors are off camera, and you're acting in kind of a vacuum. It's not the same as acting with a person on stage, and you're executing, you're listening, and you're there, you're present. It's a whole nother kind of thing, whole nother kind of acting. Mm-hmm. It's good. I mean, the ones who do it well are just phenomenal, man. The Brad Pitts and the people like this who are just phenomenal at it. But it's just a different process. That's all.
Well, I would add you to that list anyway, but it's funny that you say a vacuum. I was going to say that exact same thing. Is that you're isolated. You get no feedback of anybody like reacting to what you're doing, other than somebody off to the side going, "Oh, that's good." But it's not the same thing as an auditorium filled with 1,200 people. You can hear gasps or applause or crying, whatever it might be that your performance is invoking to people. You don't get that in acting. So it's almost like when we're on stage playing, there's an audience and you get that immediate feedback and applause and whatever, head bobbing, whatever. So
it's a beautiful thing, man, to be on stage and to feel the audience and listen to them and feel how they're connecting with you in the play. Oh, it's a gorgeous feeling, man. It's almost irresistible because they're wide open, man.
Right.
Standing in front of some wide open people is a beautiful thing, man. It really is cool. Really.
It seems like it almost seems like a person who's doing movies almost has no business doing movies without doing plays too. I mean, that's a little extreme. But do you think that that film actors are better when they do theater too, because they have that experience of running through not only through the play in one motion, but also the whole run of the play, right? So for weeks or months or something, they're developing these characters, and the character might not quite be the same at the end of the run as they are in the first performance, right?
Absolutely true.
But then when you're on camera, you have to really know your geography of where this character's going. And I think if you do the stage stuff too, can you snap into that quicker, maybe?
Much better when you're a stage actor, because you take the technique with you, like you just talked about. You develop a character in 4 weeks, which is the feminine thing. 4 weeks is like cycle of the moon, man. Right. So you go ahead and do your character, develop it, and you keep it, and you do the technique just right. And in film, you have to do all the work, all the rehearsing before you get there, and have it segmented in your head as to where they're going on the set, which set they're going to use. How am I emotionally going to feel this when I don't build up to it.
Yeah.
So it's like you have your director. That's where a great director comes in, because he studied the characters. He knows what he wants in any given moment, and he can guide you there. Some of them are really fine at doing that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just a different experience. And you're right. I think stage actors have a little bit of an edge than just straight movie actors.
There's more foundation, meat and potatoes to know where a character has come from, where it can go, and what you can do with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Plus, I like to say meat and potatoes whenever possible. What were you going to say?
All right. So I think I know the answer, but I'm going to make him choose. So what do you prefer, theater or movies?
Oh, I love the theater. I mean, I love being around that vibration of the human exchange. It's
That's
just
what I thought you'd say.
yeah, it is quite beautiful. I mean, movies, they can get a large audience, of course, but there's something about 100 people or 200 people that meet you and you meet them. And at the end of the night, they go away with something that was given to them, or they take away something. It's very special.
Yeah, I think the three of us can relate to that. You know, being in a band, we're doing a similar sort of thing, right?
Absolutely.
Each time we get on stage, we're preaching our gospel and trying to convert people, right? So
that's the truth.
Yeah, because to me, at the core, I feel like for the most part, obviously there's days when you feel like just curling up inside your house and not seeing anybody. But for the most part, we're very social creatures, and to be able to communicate with other people and spread a message, that's it, it's incredible. It really is. When everything goes right and there's no problems or anything like that, no technical stuff, no whatever, no bad weather, et cetera, et cetera. When it goes right, you can't beat it. Absolutely.
Can't beat it. You can't beat it, baby.
Coming up here on a little Day of the Dead bubble, huge fans. Wanted to know, how did you first hear about Day of the Dead?
Again, we talked about getting an agent, and my agent was in touch with the casting director, who was Christine Romero. That was George's wife.
Yeah.
And they recommended me for the role because George was looking for somebody about 6'4", big guy. I'm not that at all. So I saw the material, man, and I saw the speech, and I said, man, this is just like Shakespeare, man. Give me overnight, please.
Yeah.
And he did, because most directors just want you to come in and do it and then say, well, okay, thank you, move on. But he was gracious and cool, and I'm very Caribbean, and George is Cuban, so he was like cool and understanding. So I took it home, studied it, slept with it, on it, and came back and did the speech for him. But I thought it shouldn't be preachy. I didn't want it to get preachy. I didn't want it to be angry. And I did it with a Caribbean accent, so you can sing it, almost sing it. And he liked it,
Yeah.
And that's how I got the role. That's
great.
Oh, hold on.
I think it's one of the best monologues. It's definitely up there with like the Quint speech from Jaws, in my opinion.
Yes. So, beautiful. It was just a pleasure to do that. I didn't think it was going to make it in. You do something like that, and people want to see blood and gore sometimes, and you say, well, I hope it makes it in. I'll do it the best I can for George. He seemed to love it, and it did, because you always feared it was going to be on the editing floor.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
are you saying to us right now, I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Are you saying that the audition was the monologue?
Yes, that was it, man. He just
Wow.
put it out there, man.
That's great.
And I had
How
to
many
say,
pages was that
it was
written out?
about three pages long.
And you had to memorize that? You memorized it by just over
No,
like in
I didn't
the
memorize
course
it first. No, because I just had it overnight. So I read it to him with the inflections that he wanted.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, gotcha.
The character, when he first wrote Day of the Dead, all the action took place on a Caribbean island.
Mm.
And It was a whole lot of special effects. It was, and they wanted to keep that feeling. He rewrote it and he wanted to keep the feeling of the island in it. So he created an island character instead of the island. And we were stuck underground and the zombies were on top, which is juxtaposition. The humans are usually on top and the dead people are underground.
Yeah.
So it was a great adjustment for his rewriting. So that's how the character was born in his head. Writers are amazing, man. They're just amazing.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, were you already a fan of the first two Dead movies, or were they on your radar or not, or was this like just a new thing for you?
No, I saw the first one.
Okay,
it's a classic. You know, I hadn't seen Dawn yet.
Okay,
but I saw Night of the Living Dead, and it was black and white, and it was artistic, and it was a new idea.
Yeah.
You know, and George is on it, man. This is what won't die in people. This coming at you with the hands out to eat you, instead of embrace you. He was familiar with all the problems of the evolution of humankind. So that's how he presented it, man. That's how he put it out there.
He was always digging deeper than the average, some of the average horror movies. Let's say this, any great horror movie has to dig deeper than just blood and guts, right?
Yes.
So from the beginning, he was throwing things on screen that people hadn't seen, having the character of Ben up there, who's a strong black man and taking charge in that house over the sort of rat fink kind of guy in the basement. What's the guy's name in the basement?
Cooper.
To be doing that in the late 60s was bold,
Yes.
and he carried that through with part 2, part 3, everything.
Yes.
And it's, it's great that you were a part of a legacy of that boldness of having, these strong characters, and with a great philosophy that sort of encapsulates the whole damn thing,
Yeah. Well, he was aware, and cool. And that's how he exposed it. I much appreciation for his insights and of society of America. He put it out there in the 60s.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just have to say for the record that that scene, that's one of the most powerful monologues in not just in horror, but I'll say in any film. I'm not afraid to say it at all. It summed up the whole point of not only all the Dead films, but pretty much like humanity in real time. So I applaud every time that scene comes on. I get goosebumps. It's just ridiculous how good that was, and you just delivered that, man. Just absolutely perfect.
Oh, thank you so much, man. We worked on it. We only read through it like the first audition, and then we had a read through when I went to Pittsburgh with the rest of the cast, and we had made some cuts during that rehearsal because sometimes writers want to say too much, and he just cut a few things. We cut it together, and that was the only time we rehearsed it until the very end of the film. Man, we were down in Florida, and the last 2 weeks. I don't know. I said, well, it's getting toward the end here. Will we be able to do this monologue or not? Because when we worked in the cave, man, everybody was sick all the time from the lime dust in the air. Everybody be sick. So Florida was like, oh, here we are, man. It's so great. But I had all that time to work on it. Maybe 6-7 weeks to get it, to feel it, to make it be real. And we did it.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, you did it with a Jamaican accent.
Yes,
man. I would have never known you weren't Jamaican. So like not only was it a 3-page monologue that you had to memorize and deliver the way you did, but you had to do it with a convincing accent. So that kind of stuff just amazes me. It's next level.
One of the greatest compliments I got was from Eddie Murphy, man. I was doing one of my classic little small part in the film, and it was about the drug scene in high school. And I'm walking down Santa Monica Boulevard, and they're shooting something at the Formosa Cafe, which is a very famous bar. And out comes Eddie. He was shooting Beverly Hills Cop too. And he goes to his bodyguard over by the camera and he looks up at me. And then he looks down, he looks up at me again. He said, "Oh man, you're in the movie, man. I just saw the other day, you're in it. Tell me, what is the deal?" And repeated one of my lines, "No, no, 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 let's talk about it. Write to me." And I said, "Eddie, what you doing copying me?" He said, "You not really Jamaican?" I said, "No, Eddie, when they pay me and I sign a contract, I'll be Jamaican."
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, so
That's
good.
so cool.
Yeah.
And by the way, that encounter ties back to your almost going to Mumford. Doesn't he wear a Mumford
yes, he
t-shirt,
does.
t-shirt in Beverly
Right,
Hills
yeah.
Cop?
Yeah, you're
Yes,
right.
sir.
Oh,
So that's like a synergy right there.
we like it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. So you mentioned briefly Florida. So we all know that the beginning sequence, of course, that little tiny bit at the very end happened in Fort Myers, Florida, and on Sanibel Island in
Yes.
Florida. And the reason why I know that is because not only am I a Day of the Dead fan, but for 3 years in my junior high school days, I actually lived in Fort Myers. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, did you get to spend a lot of time there and enjoy that area at all, or was it all business real quick?
All business real quick. They had us in a condo outside of Fort Myers, and we didn't get to see much of Fort Myers. We did see George's house. He had a house on Sanibel Island, so we had dinner over there 2, 3, 4 times, and
Nice.
that's the way that was. But there wasn't really much hanging out in Fort
Gotcha.
Myers.
A lot of that stuff hasn't really changed. Like some of the key areas down there,
Yeah.
they're the same. It's really cool.
Wow. Well, they had a hurricane come through there last year. I don't know what's left, buddy.
No, it's true. You know that at the beach it was terrible, like very, very destructive. But in downtown Fort Myers, they just got a lot of water, so there was flooding. But luckily, like no buildings washed away. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was old Florida though. Those buildings were stone and beautiful old things, man. So I'm glad they're still there.
Yeah, even that TV tower from Wink,
Oh man,
it's still there. Swear to
oh
God.
no, because that's one of the highlights of the trip, man. It's my first time in a helicopter, man, and to fly up and around, man, it was wonderful, man.
Yeah.
It's the last time I was in a helicopter too.
Okay, so you got to fly around Fort Myers in the Whirlybird, I take it.
Yeah, in the whirly bird.
Oh, so good. Thank you for that.
Hey, so you mentioned you had dinner with George a few times down there. So one of the things I had sort of jotted down here was I'm looking for a favorite memory or something, interaction with George or something to remember George by that really stuck with you. Like
It was his
anything
laughter.
personal with him.
Yeah.
And
Oh man, it was his laughter. He had the greatest laughter I've ever heard, man. It was deep, and when we get together, we'd hang out and we just laugh and have a good time. That was what I really enjoyed about him. He's a great cook. You know, he cooks up some great Cuban dishes and all that good stuff. But we just would laugh and have a good time, man. That was the best thing with a director I've ever had, man. It was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, super cool. Wow.
I know we got a lot of George Romero fans that probably tune into our podcast. So I was hoping to get a little, behind the scenes, experience with him from somebody that was there.
Well, in the first place, in those days, the director was right with you. He was right there in the cave, right behind the camera, to the left of the camera. Now they're sitting in the booth watching the monitor as you're acting. And he would be there and make a suggestion. Why don't you try that kind of thing or this kind of? Those days are not as prevalent as they used to be. You hear it over the speaker. Why don't you do this or that? And that kind of personal touch is almost gone. So I enjoyed all that. George was wonderful at whispering in your ear and saying, "Let's do this." So those days are, what can I say?
Yeah. I guess unless it's a really low budget, then maybe they're more like that possibly.
yeah, it was a low budget film.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I guess I mean nowadays a low budget film might be a little more like that old school. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true because it comes up to a point where Day of the Dead has been remade a number of times. I don't know, in other countries and so forth and so on. And I never saw any of the other versions of what it was like or what they did with Day of the Dead. But I met a young filmmaker named Marcus Slabine, uh, and he and his wife were horror geeks, and they would do horror movies together. She would do the special effects, Liz would do the special effect, and he would direct the movie. So I got into a short with him. It was called The Last Call, and no money. It was just, he was a young, talented kid. And I said, you are going places. And here, take me, let's do this. Let's get this done. So we got it done. It was a short, and we went all over Chicago and Staten Island and Boston. And I went with him just to get the experience of doing something from the bottom top and the top to bottom to top. And eventually, since he had me there, he said, well, why don't we get Laurie and Cardell, and why don't we get Jarlath to come out? I'm going to write a script for you guys, and we can do an extension. So he wrote a script, put us all together. He didn't want to call it Day of the Dead. He wanted to call it Night of the Living Dead 2. So we got this close to producing it because he joined the production company of Fuzz on the Lens guys. They got their productions, and they just finished Terrifier 1, 2, and 3, which made a whole lot of money. So we got this close to filming it, but he and his wife broke up, and she took all the rights and all the creative stuff, and thumbs down for us. But we were really close to that story, man. Really, it's kind of a disappointment that happened, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Show business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably more common than not, right?
Absolutely.
When it comes to getting some of these projects done, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
There's a lot of moving pieces, and money makes things crazy. It's true.
Well, and when your partner is your lover, oh boy,
oh boy,
you know, who knows where that's gonna go? You know.
Oh man.
Yep.
Why all of a sudden did I get an image of Will Ferrell in the hot tub talking about I'm here with my lover,
Right?
eating goat's meat?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. One last question about Day of the Dead is just a general one. Is do you have a highlight moment that really stands and sticks with you? Could be during the filming. It could be behind the scene, whatever. Any moment that really sticks with you that you cherish.
I don't know. I enjoyed that character so much. I enjoyed playing him, and I enjoyed the situations. And I really, really like carrying those big guns. Those are some of my favorite moments, carrying those big guns down in the dark old cave and shooting zombies.
Yeah.
Being a zombie slayer. So that was some of my favorite stuff, really.
Yeah. It's like when we're kids and we got we're playing army in the backyard or whatever, but you got to really do it. I mean, that's part of, I would imagine that's part of the appeal of acting, is to like act out all those things that we pretended to do as kids. You get to really nail that,
Absolutely. You're right, man. Yeah. You're absolutely right, man. Bring those fantasies to bear and to life, man. You're right.
So my last question just has to do with, you're in a Dead movie and you don't actually die on screen. Does that bum you out, or do you like the ambiguity of not dying on screen?
They can't shoot me. Yeah, I like it. I like it that I survived in the movie. Really, really. I was hoping to get into the next one,
right?
Next sequence, but it didn't happen. But I enjoyed, not dying. I mean, wait a minute. I did Greg Nicotero, who does The Walking Dead. He's producing The Walking Dead as his baby. Mm-hmm. I got a movie called House 2, and he was doing special effects on it. And I was a cop, and I came in the beginning of the movie, and I got my arms pulled off by the monster. So I did
Nice.
die in one horror movie.
Okay. All
There he
right.
got
All
me.
right.
He promised he was going to get me one day, and he did get me. And
Well, we all enjoyed seeing Rhodes die, so
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
we probably would have been sad if we had to endure seeing you die in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, that was part of it because I wound up being a heroic figure. I wasn't the one from the start of the movie like a Schwarzenegger, or you see him get up in the morning and he's going to be the hero. You never knew who was going to do this in that George Romero film. So it was another added kind of mystery to the film.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some more complexity and layered like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Moving to another role that you did, probably one of the biggest ones I would surmise to date, at least, because there's always the future. But tell us a very memorable experience on the set of Conspiracy Theory.
Oh, yes, conspiracy theory. Wow, working with Mel Gibson was an absolute pleasure. He's just a brilliant filmmaker, fine actor, and we had to do some improv to get to the point of me paying him, and it was so brilliant just to work with him on the side and say, well, keep that, do this, we're gonna do. It was just so fine, man. I always tell people, me and Mel, we did Broadway together. We were outside of Broadway. We weren't in this theater, but we did Broadway together, and they closed it all down, and they sprayed water on the street, and they moved cars in and out.
Yeah.
And Danny Glover actually came by the set in a car and stopped the whole thing, and Mel went over and had put his arm around him, kissed him on the cheek, and said, "Didn't you know?"
That's great.
That's great.
I thought you were going to say for just 1 second, he yelled out the window, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
Yeah, well, they got too old after a while anyway.
Yeah. What was it like working with Richard Donner?
Oh, he's an old professor style. He's a kind of director who talks like a professor. I don't want to see him in the back of your head. This is all going to be done this way and do it this way. And he had a voice that was like thunder. And you just said, okay, I'll do whatever you want, man.
Wow.
It's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, he has crafted some absolute gems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. His versatility was just stunning, I have to say.
Most important, of course, is tell us a couple of things that you might have coming up. Do you have any shows, films, or conventions even coming up this year? We're at a fresh 2025.
Well, yeah,
I
I spoke with this guy, Marcus Slabine, who got me into a movie with this Fuzz on the Lens guys. It was called, what is it called? Stream. Who just came out, and he got a little part, and this is like a cameo, but we're working on other stuff as we, I'm still working with him, and that's been out for a couple months now. That it's the same company as Fuzz on the Lens Productions. I'm having a convention for the 40th anniversary of Day of the Dead in Pittsburgh at the mall, the Monrovia Mall, where Dawn of the Dead was shot from June 6 to 8. And there's another one coming up after that in England, Manchester, England, later on in the year. Those two things are happening. I've been there a couple of times, and the fans over there enjoy it too.
Yeah.
But that's it so far. Maybe something will come up. I don't know, but I just enjoy traveling. I've been to France and Spain and Africa and all these places in the past couple of years, just picking up places that are power pools or special places that it's guided tours, Stonehenge and stuff like that, So
Yeah.
that's been it so far. So we'll see. Something's going to come up.
One question that we like to ask our guests, because we're a podcast that loves film and music and collectible stuff and just all that kind of pop culture fun stuff. So we wanted to ask you, are there any particular albums or films that you've really enjoyed recently? And that doesn't have to be new. It can be old. Maybe you've just discovered it. Maybe you've always loved it. But just what's been spinning lately?
Well, I do love horror, science fiction horror. I do love it. I like Ridley Scott and some of his stuff. And I really enjoyed Dune 2.
Yeah.
Special effects.
We just talked about Dune. Aaron's been preaching the Dune gospel for like 2 episodes now.
Yeah, good. So yeah, I've been, that's been about it though. I love movies, period. I just love, it's our greatest art form, I think.
Yeah.
And you get the best music and the best visuals and some really fine actors, storyteller actors, and I just love it. So there's so many, I can't begin to mention one that's my favorite because I just love the genre and the art form.
That's awesome.
I'm going to piggyback off of your love of sci-fi, and I'm going to ask you whether or not this fact about you that I found on the internet, so I don't trust it inherently, but I'm going to ask you if this fact is true. Did you audition or screen test for the role of Lando Calrissian?
I sure did.
All right, see, that's confirmed.
That's great.
I sure did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think when I read that, my head was spinning. I'm like, how good would he have been as Lando? Not that Billy D. Williams wasn't amazing as well, but man.
Yeah, he was amazing, but I could have done it better.
Of course.
That's right. It's that what if scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was that? What was that like on that level? With the success of the first one and then auditioning for a film that they knew was going to be highly anticipated, high budget. Like was that a different kind of audition?
Yes, it was. It was very intense, when you know that this could happen and you have to keep your stuff together and have to get a nice angle for the character as a gambler type. But it was intense, yes. You had a little bit of a jitter that time, you had to knock it off.
Oh, yeah.
And do your thing, man, because wow, I wanted to be in those films I just wanted it.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, most of us can only fantasize about even getting the opportunity to audition, and you're out there, you got that chance. So,
yeah,
that's got to be an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Well, I like you for Lando. Too bad I wasn't. Too bad I wasn't in charge.
Yeah. I wish you'd have been there too.
I know. I knew I missed my calling.
Very cool.
All right. Well, Terry, we really, really got to say thank you so very much for joining us on this episode of V3 Cast and talking about some great history that you've done with theater, with film, Day of the Dead, and other things. It's been absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate your time.
Well, you guys are the Three Musketeers. You guys are really cool men, and there's nothing better that I like to do than to talk to some cool people, because that's what usually comes to me at the conventions when I go. All the cool people come to me.
Good.
That's right.
That's how it should be.
Yes, man.
Man, thank you so much for coming on and spending a little time with us. We really appreciate it.
I truly enjoyed you guys. You guys are cool. Really.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You too.
Hey,
All
go,
right.
All right,
go
we're gonna
Lions.
leave you with it. We're gonna leave you with this. Go Lions.
Go Lions.
All the way, baby. Go Lions.
Go Lions. Yes.
We want to say thank you again to Terry Alexander for joining us on this episode of V3 Cast. If you dig this kind of thing, go ahead and hit subscribe, because we're going to bring you more interviews in the future. And we're the band Voyager 3. And until next time, watch Day of the Dead.